The State of the Nation with Zororo Makamba.
If you're in Zimbabwe right now, you will relate to what we are talking about today, the power crisis. Power cuts are really frustrating. They make it harder for us to work. Our industry has already faced a lot of challenges, and this just makes it worse. To understand why we're here, we need to take a step back. The situation didn't start this year or last year. We have to go back over a few decades. For many years now, we did not invest enough in power infrastructure. The government is now trying to speed up that investment. First, we will look at the problems and then look at what's being done to try and solve this, short and long term. This is the state of the nation. First, the problems. Zimbabwe needs about 2,000 megawatts of power each day. Right now, we're producing just about 900 megawatts. And here's why. We have one hydropower plant, Kariba. We have 4 power stations which use coals to make electricity. That's Hwange, Bulawayo, Harare, and the Munyati power stations. Let's start with Kariba. This power station should be producing over 1,000 megawatts. Right now, it's producing just about 300 megawatts. Kariba uses water to make electricity. They push the water through turbines, which then generates electricity. Now, because of the drought, there isn't enough water to do this. This time last year, the dam was 70% full. Right now, it's less than 30% full. This means Kariba can't generate enough electricity, so there's less power for all of us. And what about the other power stations? Good question. For 30 years, we just didn't invest enough in expanding the Hwange power plant. It is old and in need of repairs. So, that's the problem at Hwange. The solution? Investment. In 2018, President Mnangagwa met President Xi Jinping of China. They made a $1.4 billion deal to expand Hwange. Work has now started there to add 2 new power plants there. Together, these 2 plants will give us 600 megawatts. However, this is a long-term project. It'll only be done by 2020 at the earliest. And what's the other problem at the other stations? Same story, there was no investment. The Bulawayo power plant was built in 1947. Yes, 72 years ago. It's supposed to give us 90 megawatts, but right now, it's not producing much. Now the government is speeding up the deal with the Indian Exim Bank to fix the plant. Then there's the Harare plant. It's also really old, built in the 1940s as well. A few years ago, the government floated a tender to revive this power plant. Sadly, the tender went to a company that doesn't seem to have the money. The Minister of Energy at the time, Samuel Undenge, said it didn't matter if the company had experience or not. This is the sort of mess that now Fortune Chassis has to clean up. Same story with the Munyati power station. This is an old plant that needs new investors. Basically, we need more investment into energy. Power plants are big projects. They need big money. Do we have that kind of money here in Zimbabwe? No. We have to go outside the country for money. But we all know the story. Zimbabwe has been isolated for so long, so we need new partnerships that work. In 2018, the President commissioned 2 new generators at Kariba. These gave us a total of 300 megawatts. This was made possible by a $500 million deal with China. This deal is why we didn't have power cuts for much of 2018, before the drought. But it's not enough. This is why re-engagement is so important for Zim. This is why Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube is talking a lot about paying back what we owe. As long as we don't pay back our debts, we can't get the kind of money we need for power plants. Together with Zambia, we're working on the Batoka project. We've heard a lot about this for many years, but with no action. But now there's real progress. The tender process has started, and by 2020, work should start on the project. This will give us about 2,400 megawatts. What about solar? The energy sector is opening up. Last year, 11 power producers were licensed. For example, this 25 megawatt solar farm in Nyambira. There's also this one in Mutoko. Econet has installed solar for its networks. Triangle and Hippo Valley are also generating power. A Japanese solar company called Univergy is investing in Zimbabwe with the solar plant for Rio Zim's gold mines. Good progress, but we need more. This is why the energy ministry is working on a renewable energy policy. It'll make it easier for operators to do work quicker. It'll also make it harder for speculators to just get licenses and then do nothing, but build a shack, show off their cash, and buy lots of shoes. The contract for the Gwanda solar project was awarded in 2015. 4 years later, nothing. The people are watching. But there's still some hard questions to ask. For example, what should we do about tariffs? Some numbers for you. It costs 11 US cents for ZESA to produce a kilowatt hour of power. In Zimbabwe, we pay 9.86 RTGS cents per kilowatt hour. So we're just paying just about 1 US cent per kilowatt hour. 1 cent. How do we compare with other countries? 14 US cents in South Africa, 11 cents in Mozambique, 7 cents in Zambia, 17 cents in Tanzania, and 15 US cents in Namibia. There's a problem here. Here's why. If we are to get more independent players, they need a higher tariff to make a profit. They cannot make losses like ZESA. Remember, ZESA made a loss of $500 million last year. It's a tough one. If we raise tariffs, things will get even worse for us. But if we don't, ZESA will keep making losses, power producers won't invest, and will stay in the dark. So in the meantime, what's being done? First, paying our debts as a country. We used to import from our neighbors, then we stopped paying them. But for the first time in a while, we've now paid something. We recently paid $10 million to Eskom. Doesn't mean we'll get power right away. No, negotiations are happening, but it shows we are serious about being a credible partner again. We still owe some $50 million to HCB of Mozambique. There are talks there as well. That's number one. Number two, improve efficiency at ZESA. A lot of costs are down to poor management. We've all seen the bad audit report. That's why there's been a big management shakeup at the parastatal. The board was dissolved and the former CEO has been accused of corruption and criminal abuse of office. The nation wants real justice. We can only hope the law would take its course. There were also too many subsidiaries. Each subsidiary had its own CEO and its own board. Now this costs us money. This has been changed and now ZESA will become just one lean company. Number three, we're losing a lot of electricity because of the old transmission network. Now did you know, ZESA loses 17% of the power that it generates due to the inefficient transmission. More like how city councils lose treated water due to leaking pipes. In April last year, ED had talks with TBA of China. It's one of the biggest makers of transformers and cables. The company is building a 180-kilometer electricity line in Mat North. We need more of that. Number four, vandalism is also really bad. How bad? Well, you won't like these numbers. $4 million. That's the value of goods ZESA lost in 2018 due to vandalism. And in 2019, ZESA has already lost 1.4 million worth of infrastructure so far. Vandals are going after copper cables, transformer oil, and copper conductors. ZESA's had to increase security. They've even started using technology to prevent this. Number five, ZESA has to go after those who owed money. Who are the biggest debtors? Our local councils. 33% of ZESA's debts is owed by councils. The second biggest group of debtors? Us, domestic consumers. That's 24%. Farmers account for 13% of the debt. Everyone must pay, whoever they are. Government has paid us 20 million debt, but everyone must do the same. And lastly, we have several signed MOUs with India concerning energy products that are at different stages of being moved forward. And not to forget the International Solar Alliance that needs to be brought forward before Cabinet and then ratified by Parliament. But what else can we do? We need to save power. In those few hours that we do get electricity, let's turn off the lights that we don't need. You drive around at night and see big office buildings with lights on, even government buildings. What are you doing up there? The energy minister says all government buildings will now have prepaid meters. No more leaving their lights on now. But for us, the majority, well, we've already had prepaid meters. We are paying our dues, but everyone must do the same. So this is where we are. We are coming from decades of low investment. Going forward, it won't be easy. There are no easy solutions, but there is movement. Funding deals for Kariba and Wange, the Batoka project, a new renewable energy policy, sorting out ZESA, fixing our transmission system, and paying our debts. These are steps being taken. It'll be tough, but the work has begun to turn our lights back on.